Hi, my name is Casey from Retroactive Arcade, and today we're going to talk about installing T-Mould. It sounds pretty simple, and it is pretty straightforward, but I've got a couple tips and tricks in there that'll give you a quick little helping hand so that you won't have to do the project twice, that sort of thing. Hopefully it's a nice quick video and you learn something. All right, so I'm using a chrome T-molding here. Unfortunately with chrome or anything that has a chrome, there's some that just have like a chrome strip with black or a different color in there. Those are the hardest ones to kind of work with. So if you just go with a solid color, it's going to be a lot easier, pliable and that kind of a thing. I'm going to show you one of the harder parts first, just because you want to get your straight parts done before you do any of your outside parts. The reason why is you're going to use the edge of these of the profiles on the inside to kind of line up where you're going and get a perfect fit. So if you have T-mold across there, you might nick it or cut it when you're playing around with it with the knife. So the way I'm doing it is kind of the way you want to do it start to finish. So to start off, I always kind of nick off, say about a 45-degree angle on the edge of my T-mold to start, just in case, so there's nothing hanging out there. Kind of clean it off, make sure you get a nice straight cut, as straight as possible. If it's not, you'll know, especially if your cabinet's kind of out of whack or perfectly square, it'll make it look kind of wonky. All you're really going to need is a nice rubber mallet. You can use a smaller one than this. I just like to beat the crap out of my stuff. So you just kind of tack it in, nice, get it going, and then hit it a little bit harder and harder as you go. I always have like a little block of some sort, just to put along the edge, just to get where the hammer itself can't get. Now that's all good to go. Now you're going to want to hit probably about ½ inch, quarter of an inch, until you get the good feel of what you're doing as you go down. You don't want to start hitting, ahead of yourself there. You're going to start bubbling and stuff, and you can't really see on this clear stuff, but it's actually those little lines on there are barbs. Those barbs go in and they don't allow it to just pull out on its own. Now I said this in the previous video on doing decals, that you pretty much get one shot at this. If I was to pull this out right now, what'll end up happening is it'll take a bunch of wood with it. If I try to put it in again, it'll always have kind of a loose fit at that point. If you do it more than once, so you go 2 or more, you're pretty much hooped, and you're going to end up having to put glue in there so that it'll expand inside the hole, and then that's not even really a good guarantee. If you're going to do that, I would strongly suggest using Gorilla Glue, because it's one of the only wood glues out there that likes to expand while it's drying. I highly recommend not using it for cabinets and stuff, especially if you want things to be square, because it expands just a little bit and sometimes it throws it off. All right, so a little trick on the end here is I try to hit or press on the edge there where I said we were going to be cutting and stuff, and it should leave a little bit of a nick or a dimple on your T-mold itself. So we'll zoom in on that, and what you want to do is kind of cut that away at that spot, and then I just kind of try to get my 45 in there. I always like using the X-Acto knife. There are tools that you can buy from places that you get T-mold that'll have like end cutters and things like that, yeah, they'll cut it straight for you, but they don't work in applications like this. It's a real pain in the butt. So my trick is what I do is I usually cut it off a little bit further past where it needs to be. Just use your scissors. If you bought those cutters from the T-mold place, then you can use those as well. And then I go and I kind of line this up by cutting off the excess of the barb. Like I said, chrome's a little bit thicker and stuff, so it's harder to use. Just so that you can get a press flat against the edge of that profile. And then I just kind of draw a line with the knife like that. You can actually press through, cut with your knife, do whatever. I like using scissors or whatever so that you can get a nice straight cut. and follow your line a little better. And then sometimes you'll be over just a tad, then just cut off a millimeter until you get it right, because I'd rather have it a little too long than too short, because you can't go backwards, obviously. Use your block. Now you can go over all this stuff. You might have a bit of a ripple. And then you're good to go. As you can see, probably pulled it out of the view there. I'm right flush with there. There's no gap, no nothing. The reason why you want to try so hard to do that is over time your T-Mould, since it's plastic and stuff, it will shrink, so it will pull away, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now. It will pull away from the edge there, and you will have a gap. Other than that, we'll move on to the next part of the T-Mould of this bad boy. Okay, so I'm going to do the profiles now on this one. I tend to leave the T-Mould on the roll and just go for broke that way. It is a lot more of a pain trying to work with the whole roll on the other end of this and trying to untangle it and do all that stuff. But it lends itself to giving me like absolutely zero waste. When some of this stuff is like $2 or $3 a foot or $1 a foot or whatever, sometimes you don't really want to waste a bunch of that. If you don't feel comfortable with that, I would measure out with a measuring tape or string and then put it on the table with your measuring tape and measure out your T-Mould. Cut it to about an inch or two longer than what you need so that you don't have a ton of waste. I'm just going to show you some quick tricks on how to go around corners and how to go on the inside of corners and stuff as well. And yeah, we'll get going. So on the bottom is where you're obviously not going to see it, so you're going to want to start your T-Mould there. I usually start it about halfway. You can measure it and you can get precise with it. Seeing as though it's on the bottom, truly I don't care. It doesn't bother me any. I just eyeball it out and good to go. Just tack it in. Just make sure your cut across there is straight so that you have something to butt against, because you're going to end up doing the same technique as what I showed you the first time on the inside of stuff. You're going to do that over the top as well. So. All right, so I usually stop about maybe ½ inch to an inch towards your corner. This corner is really sharp, and a lot of these bar tops you're going to have that issue just because they're so small. If you've got like a 2 or 3 inch or even 4 inch radius corner, you might not have to cut this at all, but on sharp corners you're going to have to. So I do like you just cut a V out of these. I cut kind of a U in a sense, so I cut my V and then I cut maybe a 1/8 of an inch of the gap out of there. I don't know if you can see it through the camera there, but yeah, so then they don't butt up with each other, when they don't bind in there when you're putting it in. So when you get to the other end of your corner there, the tip that I would suggest is give it a tug and pull it towards the direction that you're going. That'll give it a little bit of a stretch and get rid of any gaps that you have in there, so you get this nice perfect feel to it, and it just sucks itself right to the curvature of your part, as you can see. By going like 1/4 to ½ inch at a time, you're not going to get any binding in here. Sometimes if that barb that's on the inside here, if it buckles and it tries to go the other way, you'll ruin the wood in that spot, and you'll either have a bump or you'll have to cut that part of the T-Mould off. So again, about ½ inch there. This curve's not as bad as the other one. It's not as sharp. So I'm just going to cut a V. I'm not going to cut a little space section out of it, just because it's not going to really bind or buckle on me. Give it that tug. You get that nice tight fit around that corner. That's what you want. All right, so as you can see, it's starting to want to twist on me and everything else. That's just because I'm really pig-headed, and I really want to keep it on that roll so I have no waste. So I keep twisting and playing around with that. If you get annoyed with that and it doesn't work for you, pre-measure. Okay, so we're at a sharp corner yet again, so I'm just going to cut that kind of V-U shape out. Watch when you do this. Sometimes you can nick the edge of your T-mold, and then kind of shows on the outside, and it's not as nice as it could be. Give it a good tug. When I say pull on that though, like you're not reefing on it to stretch it, because if you really stretch that, since it's plastic, like I said earlier, it's going to want to shrink. So it will tighten up and it will start to pull away from other places where it's actually loose. So don't, like when you tug, just keep it, you know, fairly tight. Don't stretch it. It is the plastic, it will let you know when it's, you'll feel the stretch if it's stretching. That's not good. This one here has quite the sharp corner going on the inside, so I'm going to take off a little bit extra in that kind of V-U kind of action. I like this. I'm kind of just making up my own lingo here. I'm sure it has an actual name, but we'll go with this for now. Okay, so now we're doing the opposite. So now I'm not taking anything away. I'm just going to measure where that line is for that inside curve. And you're just going to cut a line, and that's it, just so that it can open itself up, so that you're not stretching it. It won't pull away later over time when it shrinks. Okay, a couple last corners and we're good to go here. Same old, same old. The tighter the corner, the bigger that you want to have that gap in your U cut out. You can even kind of test it a little bit before you put it in, but corners are the big no-no of pulling out. Once you get it in there and you try to pull it out, it'll rip that corner to shreds. Just because it's obviously the weakest point of the profile. On these corners, sometimes it's better to take out a little more than a little less. Alright, so you can see I'm coming to butt up with this here. Take my scissors, cut about 1/4 to 1/2 inch extra off. I have a little nick if you want to hit it in with your hammer. It'll kind of dent where it's going to hit. I go just behind that and I go straight up and I cut that barb right off, or the T that goes into the channel. Okay, then hammer it in. You get your overlap like that. We got a good view of that. And then what you do is you just take your knife and I kind of line up and nick the one side there and then nick it there, so I have a visual, and then I just cut a straight line across with the knife and then hammer it in. Make sure there's no leftover junk in there, and you're good to go. Yeah, perfect seam every time. Bam! Okay, well, we're going to do up the rest of the machine, and we'll show you what she looks like when it's all done.